This is LP Giobbi.
Listen up, children.
You are listening to Femme House Radio.
I said listen up, children.
On Diplo's Revolution, Sirius XM.
A wonderful night is made as much by the dancers as the music. Guided as much by the spirit of joy in the room as by the hand which reaches for the next record. Each of us has a role in tonight's experience. We all play in the band.
This is LP Giobbi, and I founded Femme House, a 501c3 foundation and educational platform that teaches the technical areas of music making for women, non-binary, trans, and other marginalized gender identities. Every week, I will be interviewing and spotlighting women in music while bringing you the best dance tunes from around the world.
Our next guest on Femme House Radio is BIIANCO, a multi-instrumentalist and producer who transforms heartbreaks to heavy beats and triumph to vocoder choirs. She has been played on KEXP and KCRW, and she has a sync in Tiny Pretty Things on Netflix and Treatment on HBO. Hello, and welcome to Femme House Radio.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So tell us your origin story and your journey to becoming BIIANCO.
Okay, well, BIIANCO is my mother's maiden name, and I'm a New Yorker who ended up settling in Los Angeles. And when I was like going solo and becoming a producer, really discovering my voice, a lot of the things that drove my creative process ended up being things that like had really informed my childhood. Like I'm a classically trained pianist, which shout to you because I know keys players in the house.
Also, I'm using my mother's maiden name as well. So
really?
We actually have a lot of similarities.
Italians.
Yeah. Italians reclaiming the matriarch.
Yes, BIIANCO. Yeah. Yeah. So it was like a lot of like one of the staples in a lot of the things that I was doing was like classical strings arrangements over beats, or like trying to incorporate my classical training with piano and stuff like in keys, and all of that is like was very informed by my childhood years. So it really just made sense that as I like stepped into my own at like age 27, 28, that I leaned into the roots that had like that were my strengths. Like, what do you do well? Like, where are the what comes naturally to you? And those things were what came naturally to me. So BIIANCO, I went back to the start.
Oh, that is beautiful. Your debut full-length record, Mixtape Number 2, comes out this fall. Did you make this during the pandemic, or what was your process in recording this record?
Well, some of the songs were made during the pandemic. This was a wild mix. This has been a wild piece of art to be created because I didn't know I was making it, and now that it's done, it all makes sense. Like I started writing it in 2019. Some of the songs are some of the first songs I ever wrote. And then I wrote it through falling in love, through getting my heart absolutely annihilated, through the aftermath, like the numb period, the rebirth, falling back in love. And like, it really like all of a sudden, like the arc of the songwriting, it was like, I didn't know what I was making, but now that it's done, I'm like, oh, it really makes sense. So I think the heartbreak and numb and rebirth happened during the pandemic, which probably just made the heartbreak that much harder, to be honest. Yes. And and actually it came, I put out the poetry book version. I ended up as a way of like getting to know my mental health and like my inner psychology and my emotional self and stuff. I started using poetry as a coping mechanism, and it's really interesting because my therapist was like, write a poem a day. And then I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but then all of a sudden I was like, I have a whole book of poems. And some of those poems, what will be really interesting for my fans is like, you'll hear them on the songs because they became songs later.
Oh, but I love that.
Yeah.
That
book
awesome.
Came out in February. So now They all make sense together. They're all married. All these little pieces were whirling around. So it kind of like was something I didn't know. A stream of consciousness in a lot of ways.
Awesome.
Well, The Art of Saying No, right? I just read that. The Art of Saying No.
Wait, what?
Yeah, have you ever heard that?
No.
Book? It's like not book, it's like a essay kind of thing, The Art of Saying No. And I was like, and today I got like an opportunity, and I was just like, and my ego said yes, but then I was like, I can't. Like, I don't even have time to fucking, like, yesterday, I didn't even have time to get myself some fries to eat. I was like, I need to eat something until like 6 p.m. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I really appreciate it, but I'm gonna say no.
So what does this is? Does it tell you like no in the place of self-care, or like what is the
Yeah,
thesis?
the art of saying no. It's like realizing where your ego wants it to win, and like the art of like prioritization, and like recognizing the difference between ego and necessity, and also learning scarcity mindset.
Oh
Which
my
is
God,
like we say yes to everything because we're afraid that like resources aren't limited, but they're actually like not. There's a fuck ton of resources out there, and even if you lose that opportunity, there's like another one right behind it probably.
oh my God. Scarcity is like what I've for sure been operating at for such a long time. And
How much
yeah,
of that is because we're women in the industry too?
totally. I mean, like being in the industry and like even just like trying to make it as an artist in the industry, you feel like not everybody can be an artist. It's like going to be so hard. This whole like
Hmm.
the trope of like the starving artist, you know, you have to say yes to everything, whatever. And then on top of that, being a woman in this industry is just like my management team is really working with me to like try to be like, saying no doesn't like is actually saying yes to a different opportunity, and it's like actually saying yes
Hmm.
to taking care of yourself and not burning out, because this is a marathon, not a race. And it's really
Yeah.
hard for me though. I want to say yes to everything, and sometimes you strategically have to say no, and that is so hard for me
Hmm. Yeah.
working on
Yeah,
that.
I know.
But
I
maybe I
feel
need
you
to
on
read
that.
this. Okay, I maybe
I'm
I
gonna send you the
definitely.
link.
Okay, please do. Thank you.
We're just gonna be like, no, no, no. We're gonna have a big sign
Oh my
that we
God,
hold
wouldn't that
up.
be
No.
amazing? That would be amazing. Okay, so you worked with Charlie Barker recently.
I did in
What?
London the
Okay,
last time I was here.
she sent me one of the tracks.
Hmm.
It's amazing.
It was
How
like
did you
a
two
nice
connect?
Instagram, honestly. Like we'd been following each other for a while, and then we just like slid into each other's DMs. And I was like, I'm actually going to London as soon as I can go to London. And then I was like, we should do a session or something. And then we ended up spending a whole day. The first day we met, like we went and had a picnic. Then we went to a swan pond and we rode around. And then we got dinner, and then afterwards, we're like, let's make some fucking music together. So then we wrote that song. It was really like it was like that song is like got a lot of like deep feels. It's got like heavy
It's
energy.
amazing. I
Oh, I'm
hope
glad you
that
liked
there's
it.
more to you two in the future, because I am super pumped on that. And also your vibes, like visually, energetically, feel like they are a very good match.
Yeah, they're very we have very similar energy. I love them. They're the best.
That's
They're great.
so awesome. Wow, I'm thrilled that that happened. So tell me about your Ableton retreat experience. I did one of
Oh,
those, and it was amazing. And I read in your bio that that's sort of what was the precipice to you launching your own thing.
yeah. Well, so do you remember my old band Smoke Season?
Yes,
Back in the yes, you I think you booked us for
I a W show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And
So
also I'm so curious what your transition is from like being in a band to being a solo producer artist. So yeah, I'm excited to hear about this.
well, yeah, it was so I mean, honestly, I feel so bad for the producers that were working with Smoke Season by like the time we took hiatus because I mean, I was backseat driving so much. I was like already feeling like loving the act of producing. I would come with my own stems for my synths. I was like making all my synths on the Prophet and like printing the stems, and then sometimes I'd go back and like reproduce my vocals afterwards because I get really bad stage fright when I have to sing vocals in front of people or like and so I was like backseat. I was like, maybe if you try putting like Sound Toys Pan Man on that. And I'm like, so by the end, I was like already doing so much like backseat driving on the production that like there was like kind of a natural next step. And I was also doing all the Ableton stems when we would play live. I was like making all the drum racks for the SPDSX. So like for the drummer to play for Smoke Season. So there was like
Wow,
so
it's a ton of
much
work.
Yeah, because of course, like nobody else really knew Ableton in the band, so I was putting all that in, and then I started writing like a bunch of songs that didn't really like I guess fit with the vibe of the band, and then I went away on this like for a weekend in Joshua Tree, and it was like an Ableton like women in music retreat, and there was like Madame Gandhi was there, Kimmy Record from Dreamings, and like Wokes, and there was a bunch of like really great people in our community, and Tough Ghost was there. That's where I met her, and
Nice.
everybody was just talking about rigs and everything, and I was just like, oh well, like I use Ableton like this, and then they were like, oh, that's like really helpful. How do you keep the CPU down? And like everybody was just like exchanging tips, and I realized that like so I went to learn, and then people kind of learned. I learned, but then I realized that the things I was teaching people were just as valuable. And then all of a sudden I was like, I guess like it just my brain exploded because I'm like everybody uses DAWs in different ways. In like different ways. There's like no one way to use it. And just because like I have never thought of myself as a producer doesn't mean I'm not a producer. So maybe I have a lot to learn when it comes to compression or EQ or whatever, but like the way I keep the CPU down on Ableton for live performances, the way I use my drum racks, or like the way like in Logic I'm like saving all my channel strip presets so that I can jump real quick, like that's like all like producer moves, you know? So coming out of that retreat, I just like suddenly like I feel like had the confidence to tackle my imposter syndrome, and I just went so heads down and wrote and produced like 3 songs and learned how to sidechain. Learned to like, but like it made like a vocals like chain, and like oh my god, there was learned compressors. And actually, what's so crazy is like I still feel like to this day the song that people are always like, I love that song the most, and the one that like got me a big sync and people all over the world, like it's my most like in Shazam song or whatever. That song was the first song I produced. It wasn't the first song that came out, but it was the first song I produced. It's 13 Dead End Drive, and it's probably because I spent so much time producing it. I took so long because I was learning how to do like everything while I did it. So I guess it goes to show you that like we can always learn, but it was really imposter syndrome that sort of like kept me like super
Yeah, it sounds like you were definitely
immobile.
producing, and you had been for a while, and that's so funny to like give yourself that title and the importance of. I talked to like the woman named Steph LaFera, who's like a big mentor of mine in this industry. She started Little Empire, where I'm signed to, and then she went to
Mhm.
she then became the head of the electronic department at WME and is now a partner at WME, and she's just a beast, and she's worked with all the huge, like EDM DJ duo acts, and like Cascade and Galantis and whatever. And she's like, the funny thing is, she's like, I think that it's not like the technical skill that's holding women back. I think that it's the name, like calling themselves that. It's truly just like stepping into the name, and also the fact that like she's like, none of these guys I work with do everything themselves. None of them like do all the mixing. None of them do all. They all have multiple people touching it, and women think that in order to be called a producer, they have to do absolute every single the mastering, the mixing, and she's like, and I think that is single-handedly holding everything back. I was like, that's such an interesting perspective, because I think that sometimes we think if we're collaborating or if we're whatever, then we can't really give ourselves that title. But you've been you've been doing, I mean, making your own, re-recording your vocals and making your own vocal chain, and then like making the live show from all the Ableton stems, like you're getting in there and you're using this stuff more than a lot of producers. That's crazy.
Yeah,
you think of like Rick Rubin, he doesn't touch a computer.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
one of the most
no,
famous
definitely
producers
not.
in the world. Like that's It's kind of wild how that goes.
Yeah, he doesn't. I mean, I think that this like our new like millennial Gen Z way of producing is like we're all our engineers and we're all our producers a lot of times. Yeah, like, but actually, I think my workflow is like I like the undilutedness of being my own engineer, though I still like really learn from like my best friend who was in Smoke Season with me and is like still like we share a studio. He's the one of the best players I know. I will ask him like what's on his guitar chain and stuff like that. Like I still learn from his engineering skills when it comes to like capturing instruments and stuff. And then he'll be like, "What Spitfire strings patch are you
Yeah,
using on
yeah.
this?"
Well, what's
You
funny too
know?
is like in electronic music, there is a weird crossover between engineering and producing. Because for so much of what I do, it's like creating the sound is like a huge part of the song, and it kind of informs how I'm gonna use it, and how I'm gonna play it, and like is it
Yeah.
gonna be an ARP or is it gonna be a pad, and like that's kind of like engineering a little bit too. It's like a weird fine
It is
line.
engineering. It's
Yeah,
100% engineering. We've been
which
able to
is fun.
skip that step a lot. Like, it's just they got married. They got married.
Totally.
You
The
know?
plugins are like, give me that preset and like a slight tweak and okay, did it. Totally.
Yeah.
Which is such a gift. I mean, I feel really lucky to be alive in this day and age where I can work on my computer. Like remember when you used to I mean, I don't remember, but like thinking about how you'd have to go into a studio to make music is crazy. Like
Oh my God,
what a barrier to entry. How would we ever do it? And I see that you have collaborated and are collaborating with Madame Gandhi, who I absolutely love. What was that experience like? Were you sending tracks back and forth, or were you able to get in the room together?
So that actually was pre-quarantine, and that was 13 Dead End Drive. We were friends, and I said to her like, "Hey, can I come over? I would love to just get a bunch of samples of you playing. Like, Madame Gandhi has like Kieran has one of the most incredible lofts. Actually, I think she moved out of it during quarantine, which is so sad. But it was just you walked in, it had a stage, and it had every type of percussion instrument you could ever like dream of. And I basically was like, I'm just gonna like capture you just doing loops to this song that I'm writing, and I wove all these samples of her playing congas, marimba. Like I think she played like basically every drum note, tambourines, shakers, everything. And so that's why the drums are so huge in 13 Dead End Drive because I just layered it with Madame Gandhi, like
Oh, that is
doing
awesome.
so
I love
much
the
shit.
layering of
Yeah,
live drums, the electronic drums. You can really hear that in that track. I love that.
yeah,
Femhouse is a
she's
huge
killed it.
fan of She Is the Music. We recently launched She Is the Producer in partnership with them. And I saw that you are a production mentor with She Is the Music. What does that entail?
Ah, well, it actually my mentee is in England, so I'm now finally on her time zone. But it basically has been getting to know somebody that I was like, wow, this was probably me when I was your age, but you're much further along. um, it's been just like answering questions, talking through the songwriting process, sharing tips, and we what we're doing together is she has been assembling a track. I actually recorded vocals for it. She sent me lyrics. She told me what BPM and what like key she wanted them in. And late one night, I recorded a very sleepy, sad girl track for her. And I still need to send her the harmonies and stuff. But at the end, she will have like a whole song produced. But basically, I've been like,
Amazing.
yeah, just kind of hand holding her through the whole process so that by the like she starts to, have a couple shortcuts.
Yep, and feel confident in her skin and calling herself a producer, which is something we talked about earlier. I
Exactly.
love that. So your
Yeah.
production tutorials on TikTok are amazing. And I just wanted to wrap up this interview by shouting those out. And everybody should go follow at It's Bianco, ITSBIIANCO, because they are amazing and concise and incredibly helpful and smart and interesting. And I love them.
Thank you. I
They're
didn't.
awesome.
I really struggled with TikTok for a minute because I was like, I know I got to get on it, but I don't. And then finally, I was just like, I'm just gonna make a video about something I give a shit about, like formant shifting on vocals. And then all of a sudden, I was like, I had like 3 followers, and then it was like 5,000 views, and I'm like, on formant shifting. And then I did one on side chaining, and it was like 15,000 views. And then I did one on vocal breakdowns, and it's like 250,000 views. And I was just like, okay, I guess there are other nerds out there.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you so much for being a guest on Femme House Radio. It has been lovely to get to know you and to watch your huge, epic progress and your music and sharing your genius through TikTok even. I mean, I'm very, very impressed with you. Thank you for being a guest on Femme House Radio.
Well, thanks for having me, and you are a genius, so I really appreciate that.
This is LP Giobbi.
Listen up, children.
You are listening to Femme House Radio.
I said listen up, children.
On Diplo's Revolution, Sirius XM.
A wonderful night is made as much by the dancers as the music. Guided as much by the spirit of joy in the room as by the hand which reaches for the next record. Each of us has a role in tonight's experience. We all play in the band.
This is LP Giobbi, and I founded Femme House, a 501c3 foundation and educational platform that teaches the technical areas of music making for women, non-binary, trans, and other marginalized gender identities. Every week, I will be interviewing and spotlighting women in music while bringing you the best dance tunes from around the world.